I'm super excited to have the Gutsy Gynecologist on my podcast today. So, let me tell you guys a little bit about Dr. Tabatha Barber. She is a triple board certified OBGYN physician who specializes in using functional medicine as her primary way for treating women's health. She has dedicated her life to studying the intricacies of women. She is passionate about educating women on the importance of a healthy body, mind, and spirit, a woman after my own heart. And her mission is to show by example how you can create optimal wellness for yourself by utilizing food, movement, mindfulness practices, herb supplements, and energy healing techniques as medicine. You can reverse chronic illness and create a vibrant, energized life full of joy and longevity. Sign me up.
I know, right?
I'm like, yes, yes, yes. So, gosh, Dr. Tabatha, I'm super excited to have you here on the Well and Worthy Life podcast. I've been listening to your podcast, The Gutsy Gynecologist, and just knew I wanted to have you on my podcast.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited for this conversation because women need to know that there is another way to live, right? We don't have to be miserable. Oh my goodness.
So true. So true. I know a little bit about your story because, like I said, I've been, stalking you on Instagram and listening to your podcast and everything. But for my listeners that haven't heard of you, which I can't believe anybody hasn't heard of you, tell them a little bit about your journey and how you became the Gutsy Gynecologist.
Yeah, so I definitely didn't have the normal path to becoming a physician. I was a wild child. I ended up getting pregnant in high school, and my counselor told me that I should drop out and not finish out 11th grade because she didn't want me to be a bad influence on the other girls. And I said, I've never followed the rules. Why would I start now? Right. So I did finish out 11th grade, but then I didn't do 12th grade because I needed to stay home and take care of my daughter. But honestly, it was a very traumatic pregnancy and delivery because I was on food stamps and Medicaid, and a physician was assigned to me, and he made it clear that he did not want to take care of me, that I was a second-class citizen, and a lot of things were done to me. Nothing was explained, a lot of injections and procedures, and just there was no conversation. It was horrible. And I came out of that not only a woman, because right, I went from a child to being a mother,
Right.
but a woman on a mission. Like, I realized that women needed advocates, and we needed somebody to stand up and be a voice and give them a choice in their health. And I really had no idea how I was going to do it, but I had a clear call from God, like, you need to get your crap together and learn how to become a doctor and help other women. And so I spent the next 20 years doing that, and I had huge health journeys along the way. I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's at 17 after that delivery, and I had no idea the things that were done to me. And when I went through medical school and realized that they had done radioactive iodine ablation to my thyroid to kill it, and all of these things that I really didn't consent to because I didn't know what I was signing up for. I just put all my trust in them. And so it's like I go on this health journey and I learn all of these things that conventional medicine does to patients. And fast forward, here I am, a physician in this broken system. I'm broken. I'm sleep deprived because I'm delivering babies all night. I'm doing surgery all day, seeing patients. I'm stuck in survival mode, just trying to survive with 2 little kids and my older daughter. And I finally reached my breaking point. And so I've had a couple big shifts in my life that are just like wake up calls, like, oh, it's time to pivot and do something different, And I found the world of conventional medicine through that journey to heal myself and fix my brokenness. And once your eyes are open, like, you can't go back. I realized what I was doing to my patients, even though I was well-meaning and I cared so much, and I actually listened to the point that I was always behind in my schedule, but I wasn't actually helping them and fixing their problems. I was contributing to their issues and causing new issues because of the medications I was prescribing and the surgeries and the procedures and all of this stuff. I was never actually fixing the root cause of their issues. And so now that I understand all this, like, I just need to get the word out to women that you're never going to find health and wellness in a sick care model. Our medical system is broken. It's a sick care system. It's focused on disease. We don't learn how to make you well.
It is so true. It's so true. And yet we don't even realize that for so long, I think. And I think, when I start talking about, I go see a functional medicine doctor. I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and I see somebody here, and everybody's like, well, what's a functional medicine doctor? People don't even understand. I was married to a physician. He was an ophthalmologist, an eye surgeon. And so I kind of saw his training, and it wasn't, I'm sure your training was totally different than ophthalmology, obviously, but you're right. You guys are just burning the candle at both ends as you go through medical school, residency. I mean, I would have to say that most people going through all of that are not living a healthy life. And then, I mean, how much nutrition are you even taught, right? I mean, prescribe medicine, because you've got to get paid through insurance, and so it's all about turning the patients through.
Yes.
So anyway, I love what you're doing now, and I love that, and I'm big on this passion about, that we turn our own messes into our message, and that, you turned your journey into something that you can help women. And it's not just one thing, it's mind, body, and spirit, just like you were saying. So I love that.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, I would say, you mentioned that my doctoring path was so different than your ex-husband's or your husband's, but it was not, because I don't think the majority of women know that OBGYNs are actually surgeons. Like, I spent
Right.
4 years,
Yeah.
like he did, in a surgical residency. I spent my time learning how to do a hysterectomy 5 different ways, and how to remove ovaries, and burn fallopian tubes, and do colposcopies, and deliver babies, and C-sections in under 90 seconds. And like, that is what the focus was. We didn't spend hours understanding the hormonal endocrine system and all the intricacies of how our adrenals and thyroid and pancreas and all these systems interact and work off of each other. So honestly, he probably learned about the same as I did as hormones, yet we look to OBGYNs to be the women's hormone experts, and they're really not. And so many women across this country are just frustrated because they're being told, you can't test hormones. There's no way to understand where you're at in your cycle. There's no way to fix you, or there's no such thing as hormone balance. Like, they just get dismissed. And it's not because they're crazy or they don't know what they're talking about. It's because doctors literally are not trained in that way. I went to school to learn diseases and to figure out what medication treats that symptom of that disease, or what surgery removes it. I wasn't trained to figure out why it was happening, and to go back upstream and to work on those things. And like you mentioned, it's almost always diet and lifestyle, environmental, all these other things. And so we're really just perpetuating disease in this medical model. And it's not only failing women, but it's really harming them.
Oh, I agree, because I think that people are having hysterectomies, they're having things taken out that maybe don't need to be taken out. A lot of things. I mean, I know sometimes you have to do things. I mean, sometimes we need conventional medicine, but I think there are a lot of other things. One of the things, I was just listening to your podcast today that you did on what is perimenopause. And I love this because my clients that I work with are mostly perimenopausal, menopausal women. But what I have found is most perimenopausal women, just like I was, they have no idea that the signs, and you talked about how these signs are starting so much earlier and that it's really hormonal imbalance.
Yes, exactly. I mean, perimenopause should not be a 10 to 15-year event. It should be this short transition from having regular cycles every month to no longer ovulating and being done with your reproductive level of hormones called menopause, where you no longer have periods. But what we've seen over the past 15 to 20 years is this new development of all these hormone imbalances that were very, very uncommon. Like when I went to medical school, there was never any discussion on estrogen dominance or phase defects or all of they were like rare, super uncommon. PCOS was just coming out as a new diagnosis and term when I was in medical school, because what's happening is we are being bombarded like never before in this time in history with environmental toxins that are completely disrupting our hormones. We are living in a way that we never have in time past, overstressed, overworked, trying to do it all, have it all, be it all. We don't respect sleep. We abuse alcohol. We don't eat real foods. We eat Franken foods out of boxes and bags in restaurants. And all of that has a profound impact on our hormones. And so we are starting to see these cycle dysregularities younger and younger and younger. And so now it's really the fad to just be like, oh, perimenopause is the 10 to 15-year time period before menopause. It doesn't have to be. It shouldn't be. It's that you have to get control of some stuff and reel it in and figure out what's going on.
So is it because too, I'm wondering, women, so I had my babies early, 23, 25, and 28. So I was done having children by the time I was 28. Whereas my daughter-in-law just had her first child at 30. And I know more and more people are even having their children later. Does that have anything to do with this hormonal imbalance that we're
Well, that definitely plays a part. There's been a huge increase in infertility and fertility issues in the past couple of decades, and it's because women are waiting longer to have their first pregnancy, and they're taking birth control pills much longer than we ever have in the past. And birth control pills, you know, I'm all for women's rights and the pill. That's how I got through medical school without a second baby, right? I couldn't have done it without the pill. But you have to know what you're signing up for. You have to know the long-term consequences. And it really wasn't designed for a woman to be on these synthetic hormones for 10 or 20, 30 years. Yet that's what we're doing because of the way that we live now. We're trying to be successful and go out and do our thing. And that's amazing. But it does come at a cost, and the cost is sometimes that it stops the communication between your brain and ovaries, so that communication might not ever come back online, or it comes back on and it doesn't know how to talk to each other anymore, because that's how hormones work. They talk to each other and they make more or less depending on the situation. So it's very dynamic. It's always changing. And we've seen the incidence of hormonal cancers increase as well in the past couple decades. And a lot of it has to do with either suppressing our ovulation or suppressing pregnancy, so that we're always in this hormonal imbalance. Because whether we like it or not, like I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a physician, like I'm all for being equal to men, but our physiology was made to get pregnant, carry a pregnancy, nurse babies, repeat. Like literally we're created to be able to do that for 20 years straight. And so a lot of what we're trying to do now in this day and age is going against that nature. And so it does have consequences for sure.
Right. Yeah. And we live in this society where we, just like you were saying, we're eating this Franken foods, all these processed foods, because we live in a society that do it faster and quicker and, try to do it all, be this superwoman. And, luckily when my children were little, I was a stay-at-home mom. I don't even know how these mothers do it. These entrepreneurs do it, juggle all these children and all their schedules and work and try to be successful and be a wife and be this sexy woman at night in the bedroom and try to do, I mean, how in the world? I just think, my
Yeah.
goodness.
That's why we have so much endometriosis and fibroids and breast disease and breast cancer and all of these things, because we're living in a continual pattern of hormone imbalance, and eventually that catches up with us. One of the scariest patterns I've seen over the past 20 years is somebody has heavy periods or severe PMS, that type of thing. You put them on a birth control pill to try and keep track of it. That's what we say. We say it regulates your hormones, but literally it shuts down your hormone production and gives you synthetic hormones. Let's be honest. So you're on this pill, and sometimes it works for quite a while and you're on it for a decade or two. Sometimes you continue to have irregular bleeding, heavy bleeding. Then we try an IUD. Then we try an endometrial ablation where we burn the lining inside of your uterus. And then some even women bleed through that and end up with a hysterectomy, or they have chronic pain and end up with a hysterectomy. And then a few years later, they get diagnosed with breast cancer. So we never stop to question, how did you get breast cancer? It actually started 10 years ago with your heavy periods. That was a signal from your body. It was a warning sign saying, hey, there's an imbalance here. You need to evaluate and change what you're doing. But we don't look at it that way in conventional medicine. So what we do is we say, oh, that annoying symptom is bothering you. It's got to go. Let's figure out how to get rid of the symptom, as opposed to listening to the warning of the message. And so this estrogen dominance picture continues and continues for a decade or more. And what we now understand about breast cancer is it's not just because you have estrogen. It's because your body isn't metabolizing it down the right pathway, because it's not being kept in check by enough progesterone, because it has too much inflammation being added to it from chronic stress or gut issues, all these other things. So it's multifactorial, but it's very much associated with this chronic hormone imbalance that gets ignored, covered up, disregarded, and then rears its ugly head. So that's why I say we're not only failing women, we're actually harming them, because I think we could prevent a lot of disease and pain and suffering if we just stop to listen to the warning signs and say, man, why is she having heavy periods? Let's investigate, because we now know there's a few main reasons for it. It's usually a sluggish liver, gut dysbiosis, adrenal dysfunction, or thyroid issues. And so if you get those all in check, the periods balance out and you don't need all those interventions, and you stop the estrogen dominance that drives the breast cancer and all the other bad stuff. So it's just a completely new way of looking at things. And I want women to embrace this idea, because it's empowering. It's like, oh my gosh, I can change my future, my health outcomes. You totally can.
Oh, yes, I totally agree. I think, I always talk to my clients about, you have to advocate for it yourself. And, just because a doctor says one thing, it doesn't matter. So, but it's not easy to find the right doctor, as we know. I mean, I did see where you see patients online as a functional medicine doctor, you don't take insurance, and I love that, because I think that that's so helpful. I mean, like I said, I see a functional medicine doctor here in Alabama, but we only have two or three, and they're really hard to get into. I'm sure you're probably really hard to get into also. That's the problem, is that we don't have enough doctors out there like you, you know? And
It
so then
is.
what do we ask our doctors?
Those are great questions. So it all depends on your doctor. There are some, obviously, who have big egos and they do believe they know it all. They learned it all in medical school and this is how they practice, and they're kind of stuck in that mindset their whole life. And if you have a doctor that doesn't have an open mind when you ask question, that's a red flag that you should probably seek someone else. And it could be another conventional doctor, but because there are a lot of doctors out there who are open-minded and admit that they don't know everything and that science continues to evolve, and what we learned in medical school was already antiquated. So I was learning crap from the 1950s. And if I come out and practice like that, I'm doing you a huge disservice. You have to continue to be a lifelong learner. Things change all the time. The things we believed 20 years ago, like low fat, no fat diet is the healthiest, that kills people. I mean, we're just putting our tails between our legs on so many things and admitting we were wrong. And there's you got to find a doctor who is able to admit that and say that, and who's able to say, "Oh, I haven't heard of that. Let me look that up and get back to you." Or, "I'm not really sure. Where did you hear about that?" And have a conversation with you about it. But I will tell you, like you mentioned, we're in a broken system, and I typically had 15 minutes to see a patient. So there wasn't time for those discussions, and you can't even be mad at them because I used to sit in meetings every single month with 4 or 5 managers above me telling me I needed to see more patients, do more surgeries, deliver more babies, and, spend less time with my patients. And I was already at the 15 to 20-minute mark. And you're telling me that I'm going to help impact their health? No, not at all. It's just not possible. And so to really reclaim your health, you do have to step outside of the broken system. That's why I love functional medicine, because we're willing to do things in a different way. And some people get really frustrated that we can't take insurance a lot of the time. But honestly, when people pay, they pay attention. All of a sudden,
So
their appointments matter. And, oh, yeah, maybe I should get that blood work. Maybe I should monitor what I'm putting in my mouth. Maybe we should actually do the stuff we talked about. And that's where the magic happens, because I can't make anybody better. That was always my frustration as a surgeon, is like somebody would come to me with stage 4 endometriosis. I'd spend 3 hours cleaning up their pelvis, getting rid of all the adhesions, taking out the disease, and they would be back in 6 months in miserable pain because they were continuing to live in a way that was feeding inflammation and disease in their pelvis. So it really, I can't fix you as a doctor. I'm a guide. I can tell you what you should do and help guide you and encourage you. But literally, you have to be the one that makes the choices every single day. I'm going to eat real food that nourishes me and heals me, or I'm going to eat garbage that causes inflammation and disease. I'm going to go move my body, and help heal myself and support my mitochondria and my brain function. Or I'm going to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. Like, I can't be there to help you make that decision. Those are your choices, and they, without a doubt, impact your health. So it's all about us just taking accountability and feeling empowered that we have way more to do with our health than the medical system tells us. I mean, it's really ingrained in us, that this white coat mentality, like you walk into the doctor's office, they know best. You give all the power to them, all the decision making, and they hand you a magic pill or do a magic surgery and you're cured. And it's crazy that we think that way, but we do. We've just been
Well, because I
trained.
think so many times we just want the quick way, right? We just want something
Yeah,
quick. We live in that
exactly.
society where we can get most things pretty quick. But, unfortunately, health doesn't come just quick. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I talked about why I started Well and Worthy Life, and it was because both my parents got cancer. My dad died at 59 of cancer. My mother got cancer at 60. She lived 15 more years. And so I decided for me, I needed to do everything possible to live a healthy life and to change some things around. And this person told me, she's like, well, I kind of feel the opposite. I feel like, well, I better eat and do whatever I want to because I might not have that long to live. And I'm like, no, you can change that.
Yes. And your quality of life is so much better. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. It does not feel good being on oxygen or having trouble breathing or having the inability to walk up a flight of stairs or to sleep at night without a machine strapped to your face and have no libido or intimate life. Or, I mean, so many things. Like, you're going to live probably for, another 20, 30 years, but it's going to be friggin' miserable or it's going to be amazing. I choose amazing,
Me too. Me
hands
too.
down.
Amazing. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so, okay, so one of the things you said, and I love the utilizing food, we talked about whole foods, real foods, right? Not processed foods. We know what that means. Unfortunately, most
I
people
hope.
don't do that.
You know what? Because the food industry is so disgusting, we're all confused. Like, everything uses these tricky marketing words now to make things sound healthy when in fact they're not. Like natural peanut butter, it's still full of sugar just because, they call
Read the
something
labels.
natural.
Read the labels.
Yeah. So we are all very much addicted to sugar. And I would love for women to like really just have a protein on your plate and a vegetable and then add some fruit in there, once in a while. But if you can't tell what it was because it didn't come from a mama or grow out of the ground, like you should question whether or not you should eat it. Like, it should look like its natural state. You know what I mean? That's what I think of whole foods. So all these processed protein bars and everything that's like labeled natural or gluten-free or healthy, it's all a bunch of processed stuff with tons of added sugar and bad inflammatory oils. I would say that's probably one of the worst things that women can ingest is inflammatory oils because it drives so much inflammation in our pelvis. And it's hidden in everything, like any kind of seed oil, sunflower, canola, vegetable, all those oils. I remember using so much vegetable oil when I was growing up to bake and things like that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it literally sends you down a pathway of inflammation because it's very high in omega-6s as opposed to omega-3s or omega-9s. So if you could do one thing besides breaking up with sugar, that's obvious, but really swapping out those oils. Like, if you look at your tortilla chips and your granola bars and all of these things you think are healthy, they're full of these seed oils. And so you have to get those out of your diet. You want to switch to olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil. Those are more omega-3s, and they're going to actually dampen the inflammatory process and help your body heal. So it's total opposite, and that's really important.
Right. Movement. What's your movement of choice? I always love that.
So, oh my gosh, it's changed so much over the
Yeah.
years, as it should. Like, what works for you in your 20s and 30s does not work in your 40s and 50s. So, I used to be able to do all cardio and like drop weight whenever I want or do, switch things up, have a ton of energy. But especially for women who have any kind of adrenal dysfunction or thyroid issues or hormone imbalance, cardio often will work against you and cause you to gain weight because it's another added stress to your already elevated stress hormones. And so most women, north of 40 should really be focused on muscle building because muscle is a fat burning organ. And so if you have muscle, it's going to help keep your metabolism up and burn your fat. So I have transitioned over to, either hit workouts, so it's a combination, or just straight up weight training a couple days a week. And women are so afraid of bulking up. I hear this all the time, and you're not going to bulk up. You do not have enough testosterone in your body to become like a bodybuilder. Like those women work their butts off to get that big. You're only going to look toned and slimmer. You're going to look so much better, and your clothes are going to fit better if you are doing moderate weights. Like, don't be using 2 and 3 pound dumbbells. Like, get out the 8s and the 10s and the 15s and actually do some rigorous weightlifting. It's amazing for your bones. It's so good for your mental state, and it does make you feel sexier. It helps with intimacy and your libido, and so many amazing things I could say about. I could go on all day.
I'm with you. I'm 56 right now, and it's definitely changed what I do today than what I did in my 20s and 30s, for sure.
And I would love to mention that when women go through menopause, they lose that protective estrogen, and a lot of women will start to have muscle fatigue and joint pain and just overall fatigue. Yes, because your testosterone levels also go down, your DHEA goes down, which is your anti-aging hormone. And some women completely give up exercising during that transition because it becomes an uphill battle. It becomes so hard because first they're still trying to do all the cardio, they're still trying to go to jazzercise nonstop or something, and they're not focusing on the muscle building. So there's so many things you can do. You can do bioidentical hormone replacement. You can do phytoestrogens and natural supplementation. You can just make sure your body isn't in an inflamed state so that you aren't having all those aches and pains, but don't give up the movement completely. I beg you. And if you have, just get back into it. Like walk every single day and slowly work your way back up, because that's the quickest way you're going to age, is stop moving.
It's funny you say that, because I will say a few years ago, my lower back started hurting so bad. All of a sudden, I was like, what in the world? And so I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't do anything. Well, that was worse, not doing anything. So
Yes.
now I'm very careful with my lower back. But I continue to do different things. And honestly, now I have a tight ligament in my groin area. I feel like every day it's something different, but I'm not going to quit, because I have a 3-year-old granddaughter, and I want to do all these fun things with her a long time. And I am not going to quit. I want to feel good. Even though I have those aches and pains, I still think, I know I probably need to stretch more. I need to do more mobility, things like that. And I just need to work through it and not moving makes you stiffer and makes you less mobile, obviously. And gosh, we got to work on those things. As we age, I want to, when I'm 80 and 90, I still want to be very active.
Yes. That is the key right there. As soon as you stop moving, everything hurts so much more. And it's so much harder to start from the beginning again,
Yes.
than
Yeah.
to just keep going or to modify or to slow it down and adjust. I would say just never stop. But if you have stopped, like start today. Today is literally the youngest you're ever going to be again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tomorrow you're going to be older. Next week you're going to be older. Like start today. Just stop with the excuses. I love Mel Robbins. She's like an amazing motivational speaker. And she
I
just
love her
says,
too.
like, count down from 5 and just do it. Like, just move forward. Stop talking yourself out of it. That's your brain just trying to protect you, but it's not really a good protection. It's a sabotage.
Exactly. And we know how to do that well, don't we? Self-sabotage.
Yes.
Okay, so we got the food, the movement, mindfulness practices. So, what are your mindfulness practices?
Oh my gosh. So they They change a lot because I'm
Yeah.
very interested in having control over my mind and manifesting the dreams that I have in my heart. And so I'm constantly trying to tweak that and biohack it and figure all that out. I originally started out with 10% Happier. It's an app you can download on your phone. It's just full of meditations. I love Joseph Goldstein. He's very soothing. And I would literally sit and listen to him. They were 5 to 10 minute meditations. You literally just sat with your eyes closed and did whatever he said in your mind. And it was very addictive. And I became acutely aware of how I was talking to myself negatively and how I was sabotaging myself and how it was impacting my relationship with other people. And it really shifted my day and my relationships and my mindset. And it shifted it in a positive way so that the future that I was imagining was starting to happen because I was no longer in my way.
Yes.
So that was really powerful. And so I encourage everybody. I hear it all the time. I'm no good at it. I suck. I can't
I
do
don't
it.
have time. I hear that one. I don't have time.
Right. And I'm telling you, these are 5 and 10 minute meditations. Like,
Right.
yeah, the app was $100 or something, but there's thousands. You just can listen to them whenever you want. And it was so powerful to realize all the junk that was going on in my head because it's all like recordings of things that you have heard over the decades and just filed somewhere, and then they just play on repeat, and the ones that play are always the negative, harmful ones. And so we have to change those subconscious thoughts and patterns because they dictate our actions. What I decided was I want to be a completely new woman. Here I was, like, cranking out 40 patients a day, falling asleep at my desk at lunch. I was not raising my children. The nanny was. My marriage was ridiculously broken. He was living in another city. And I made a decision. I want to be a woman who drinks coffee while she sits and talks to her patients and listens to them. I want to be a woman who wakes up at 5 a.m. and works out and is in shape. I want to be a woman who has the right mindset to get her children ready for school in a happy way so they don't leave the house crying and screaming, that we walk to the bus stop and we enjoy that. I'm there when they get home. I'm making dinner. I'm teaching them how to cook. Like, these were my priorities. That's what I envisioned. And I said, what would that woman do every day in that life? And I started doing those things. And I started believing that I could be that woman because I was doing her behaviors. And here I am, like 2 years later, and I'm her. So it's completely
Awesome. Oh
possible.
my God. I love that. I love that.
And it's doable for anybody, but you have to sit down and actually be able to envision who you want to be, because some of us are so lost and broken and overworked and over everything that we don't even have the time to sit with ourselves to know what we want. So that's what being mindful is all about, is like connecting. And I always ask God, like, God, show me what I want. Show me what my good life looks like. Help me get there. Show me the path. Bring me the people. Bring me the resources. Give me the connections. And I just keep asking and it keeps coming. So don't be afraid of that. Just do it.
Oh my gosh. You and I are so much in alignment. I totally
I know. I love it.
I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so herbs and supplements. What herbs and supplements do you really think help?
Oh my goodness. It depends on what state you're in, right?
Right.
They are so beneficial if you have estrogen dominance, but they are also very beneficial if you have estrogen depletion, like menopause. So it depends on what your hormones are doing. You know, women who are trying to get pregnant in that whole fertility stage, that's a whole nother scenario. But in general, we want to maximize how our body metabolizes estrogen, whether how old, whatever age. So that is supporting the liver with milk thistle, diindolylmethane, That comes in cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. It also comes as a supplement called DIM. There are bacteria that live in our gut that make an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase. That beta-glucuronidase will cut the garbage tag off your estrogen that you're trying to excrete through your stool. So if you want to absorb more estrogen, leave that bacteria and enzyme alone. If you want to get rid of it because you have estrogen dominance, you want to take something like calcium D-glucarate because it prevents that enzyme from doing that bad job. And so it really does matter what your hormones are doing. And a lot of times you can tell just based on the symptoms. Estrogen dominance looks like heavy periods, breast tenderness, headaches before your periods, PMS, wanting to rip your partner's heads off, not having, not being able to tolerate anything, like just irritated. Whereas low estrogen, classically hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings. But sometimes it's just feeling depressed, feeling like we're not ourselves anymore, and you're no longer having periods, or they're super light and short, or you're skipping months, that kind of thing. So there's a way to figure all of that out for sure.
Yeah, so, I have this question asked to me all the time. Well, what supplements do you take? And I can tell everybody what supplements I take, but those are recommended to me based on my blood work, on my hormones, on everything else. So what I take doesn't necessarily mean what somebody else should take. So I think that's why it's so important to get with a functional medicine doctor who can really say this is what you should take, because I think we're all so different, right? I mean,
Yes. So what I see is there are foundational supplements that in this day and age, I feel everybody needs. Even our best food is so depleted. Like the last check was, vegetables have 50% less magnesium than they used to because our soil is so depleted. And so we are lacking in basic vitamins and minerals. Vitamin D deficiency has been, realized to be one of the biggest issues in our medical system. That was the biggest reason people got sick from COVID, was vitamin D deficiency. So there are some basic things that I recommend for almost every woman: a high quality multivitamin, vitamin D, and then methylated B vitamins, because methylated B vitamins help you metabolize your estrogen. That methyl group on those B vitamins is necessary to deactivate the estrogen and get it out of your body. And B vitamins are water soluble. So if you don't eat a ton of the good food that they're in, they go bye-bye really quick. So that's kind of my foundational. And, I have a supplement line. I call it the foundational collection. Like there's some basic things that if you want to just feel good and function and not have dysfunction all the time, here's your baseline package. And then, you need to individualize, because a lot of us are really depleted on some other major things, and we have no idea because we feel like we're eating generally healthy, but you have to remember that we're combating toxins and stress the way we just never have before, and our body is requiring extra ingredients to handle it all. So you got to give it all that love. You need to.
exactly. Okay, I could go on and on with you, but I don't want to keep you forever. I just really appreciate your time. But tell everybody how they can work with you, how they can, where all they can find you. I know you're on Instagram, you have a podcast.
Yes, thank you. Oh my gosh. I wish there was more of me, because it breaks my heart how many women across the country need help and they're feeling dismissed and unheard. I hear 100 times a day. I have a waiting list. I'm about to turn it back on and start scheduling women again. So you can definitely apply to work with me. I would love for everybody to just download my free ebook, How to Balance Your Hormones Naturally, because those first 5 steps, if women do that, they probably fix like 80% of their problems if they literally just do what's in and it's a short, it's, I don't know, 10, 20 pages or something, but it's a really good foundation to get started. And so if you do that work, you listen to the podcasts and start to make these changes, you're going to see results. And then you're less likely to need tons of tests and all these other things like going down rabbit holes, because once you clean up and do all the foundational stuff, it becomes so much more clear what's going on. And a lot of that other stuff just kind of falls to the wayside. So you can definitely check me out at drtabatha.com, reach out to me.
And Gutsy Gynecologist on Instagram.
Yep.
And the Gutsy Gynecologist podcast. We'll link all that in the show notes. But thank you so much, Dr. Tabatha. You and I are just so much in alignment. I feel like we would be like best friends.
I know, we need to hang out.
I know. But thank you again. I really do feel like that as women, we've got to be much more advocate for ourselves, ask more questions. And so I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. I know you're super busy. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did. But before we go, can you do me a favor and rate and review the podcast? Rating and reviewing a podcast not only helps others find it, but it's also similar to that know, like, and trust factor you have with your friends and family. Listeners respect the reviews of other listeners, so your glowing reviews are like trusted recommendations for other listeners. Hey, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Until next week, I hope you make those small, consistent changes that lead you to your best you.